Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Current Events Podcast. I'm your host, Darren, and we are back with Kimi,
Hi.
Chris,
Hi.
and John.
Yo.
So, the film 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? There's this part in the middle of the film, and where the main character he's visiting this crazy orbiting hotel in space, and now there's just a bunch of people talking about taking vacations in space. And when that movie was in the 1960s, now we're in 2021, and that prospect might not actually be too far away because space tourism is becoming a thing. There's people like Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk, and they're funding huge projects. And who knows what the future of space travel could be.
Right. So in case most of you guys may not know, Bezos has a company called Blue Origin, and that company flew him to the edge of space in July. And Musk's SpaceX, they flew 4 people into the space for 3 days in September 2021. And it's special because these aren't government funded. These are private companies trying to make a profit using space tourism.
I guess comparing SpaceX and Jeff Bezos' company Blue Origin, I feel that SpaceX is actually making more advancements. In fact, I believe they just sent, I think, one space mission back in September, and then I think it was the Inspiration 4, right? So they basically sent 4 individuals, right? I think one was a survivor of cancer, another was a billionaire, and one, I think, geologist, and one random sort of winner of the ticket. So yeah, and then I'm pretty sure they spent a few days up in space, whereas for Jeff Bezos, it was I'm pretty sure all billionaires or millionaires flying to space for just a few minutes, if I remember correctly.
Right, but I think part of it has to do with the rockets the Inspiration 4 used, because the Dragon, that's the name of the spacecraft. It's actually reusable, and I don't think Bezos's rocket was. I think that might be the cause why we could stay up there for a bit longer.
Wait, you're saying that? Wait, so SpaceX is already using their reusable rockets?
Yeah, it's called a Falcon 9. The capsule volume is, and it's reusable, and it has a lot of space. It's 9.3 meters squared, and it has a trunk volume of 37 meters squared. And it's all going to be used for research and stuff like that. That's why they brought the geologist guy up there to do research.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important to mention that SpaceX has I would say it's an earlier company, it's an earlier organization than Blue Origin, if I'm remembering correctly. And Jeff Bezos, the guy who runs Blue Origin, he's the guy. He's the Amazon, right? Or at least the founder of Amazon, right? So, yeah. So do you think that there's a big difference with Elon Musk running SpaceX, who's sort of been in that sort of area for a while, versus Jeff Bezos running his own space company?
I mean,
looking at them as individuals. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I feel comparing SpaceX, where it currently stands, with Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, I feel that SpaceX is actually really more advanced, more developed in sort of space exploration, space tourism, where you can clearly see they actually brought 4 people. They previously non-trained astronauts or sort of space explorers up to space. So I feel SpaceX and Blue Origin they want to achieve the same goal of sort of space exploration and space tourism, but I feel that SpaceX is really handling it much better, or more, or as in SpaceX is sort of giving a better public image of what their cause is supporting or what they're actually doing.
Yeah, SpaceX is definitely more popular. I think that's because Elon Musk himself he has a very positive image in the public, and he's more invested into science, while Jeff Bezos, you kind of see him, the public kind of sees him as a managerial, kind of company guy seeking to make a profit.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like a modern day space race, like how in the 1960s there was there was the Cold War countries, the Soviet Union um, and America. They were going at it to try to get to space first, but now it's not about nations. Um, it's more about companies. I mean, they're all American based, but these are just like now they're trying to make so much profit off the whole space thing.
Right. Back then, governments were, trying to compete with each other during the Cold War due to political gains. But now it's all about the economy, right? It's not necessarily more cheap either. For the Bezos's Blue Origin, they actually costed at 50 million US dollars for a seat. So that's a total of like 200 million US dollars.
Yeah, so I agree. Like, space tourism is definitely going to be something only the rich can afford. Like the super, I don't know, 0.001% of wealthy people in the world can afford. So, I guess instead of like previously what Chris said about space exploration being the government aiming to actually find out what is there in space, but now it's drifting towards more of like I'm going to secure space as a sort of commodity, sort of entertainment. So maybe in the future, people are going to sort of contribute to my company, sort of help my company grow for I am controlling space. I guess that's in simple terms how the future is going to look like for, I guess, space tourism and maybe even space exploration.
I think before the government was honestly trying to benefit everyone. I think like even the civilians, they were so interested because this was the first time that anyone has ever been to space. And like when people stepped on the moon for the first time, it was like a triumph for the whole world. And now they're only, like you said, they're only targeting the rich people now who can afford space tourism. So I don't know if it's because before I know the government was just like throwing money. They weren't even making that much profit. I don't even know if they were making profit at all, getting all of this space stuff funded. But now it's only about profit, and it's hardly benefiting anyone besides the most elite rich people.
Yeah, so like I definitely agree right now. So I think, if I'm not wrong, right now NASA isn't really funding any of these like private companies, including like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic. In fact, I think these private companies are actually sort of like gaining their own capital really, really quickly from, especially these space companies. For example, Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, with Jeff Bezos being like the head of Amazon, making a lot of profits. I remember actually in an interview, Jeff Bezos actually said it was his employees who actually paid for the space mission. So I guess that actually spurred a lot of like conflict, a lot of backlash from the public in what Jeff Bezos said. So I guess now really NASA is essentially being pushed down by these even larger space exploration, space tourism companies. So yeah.
I also heard that NASA's board only gave like $800 million out of the $3 billion they asked for to help fund the private companies. So I guess you can go.
Right. I can see where you guys are coming from. And there's like this general public notion that this current space tourism thing is only benefiting the rich. But I actually disagree. And I think it can turn into a very profitable and socially beneficial industry. Because, again, building on what Kimi said, NASA is government funded, right? So they don't have the option of failure. Right? But with private companies that are invested by private people, they have the opportunity for failure, and the industry will keep on developing without restrictions, basically, without government restrictions, and economic-wise, obviously. And I also think that this idea that it's only for the super rich, I disagree too, because as more companies develop and more industries join, the competition increases, right? So the prices drops. Like if you think about back when airline was released back then for the wealthy in the last century, ordinary citizens sees no need for air travel, because we have trains. Why do we need Why do we need to fly? And now air travel prices have decreased, and now ordinary citizens see it as an everyday necessity.
I mean, the thing is, I think there's a difference between, you're talking about air travel, right? But air travel is at least, it's not like going up and then going back down. It actually has a purpose. Yeah, some people use air travel to just for tourism, right? They want to go to a different country, so they fly. But I think what's important is that air travel at least had a point. So you used air travel to get from one place to another place. When you do space travel, unless if we're going to some other planet, it's not going to have a use in the same way as air travel does. That's at least in my opinion. I think it's always just going to be it's not actually traveling. It's just, doing it for fun.
Yeah, so I really agree with what Darren says. And for Chris, I think your claim really has to be more reasonable and realistic, because, for like one ticket for the space mission, for example, for Jeff Bezos's space mission, as you could see, like only the literal million, not even millionaires, billionaires, only the billionaires could actually afford to go up, and like one sort of like trip up to the space, not even like to the moon, for example, and then back down to Earth. I would say it's more for entertainment instead of like economic development, because you're basically feeding all your money back into the space, into all these space tourism companies, and instead of them actually going out to do something effective, sort of like space exploration, I feel that you're only going to create like a new sort of type of entertainment for the super wealthy, because I personally don't see space tourism being any time like accessible to, I don't know, people like us in the future to actually afford these. So I feel that yes, of course you can say the space tourism industry is going to develop, but I think you have to be more reasonable, or at least more realistic with your claim. So I would like to hear more from that.
Right. I can see where you're coming from, as in purpose, as in like aviation. You have getting from point A to point B, and with space, you kind of like just go from point A back to A, and it's only for entertainment. There's actually I read up quite a bit, and there's actually quite a lot of things you can do with space tourism besides just purely entertainment. And there's, I guess, historical evidence that things that go from things that are super expensive might decrease over time. You think back in the era of cellular phones, in Indonesia, only like the rich Chinese Indonesians could afford cellular phones back in the 1970s, and these were the big like brick-sized phones that probably only like one person in a whole village can own. But then over time, you can see the prices went down. The same goes for aviation, right? But then now you talk about the purpose. There's this thing called hypersonic travel. Well, the idea is you launch a person into space and you can travel great distances with extremely short times. For example, from London to San Francisco in an hour. These are technological advances that we've never seen before, and we can have great purpose even in like the things that we don't see. We don't see it now because obviously we've never experienced it, and it's a new thing for all of us.
I think that space tourism I definitely agree that space tourism can develop other areas of travel indirectly, like such as what Chris just said.
Yeah, so I mean,
like who knows?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry,
like maybe
continue.
we can one day travel to the moon again.
Yeah, so I feel like even though I think I would sort of like take a step away from my previous claim and say that even though it's really expensive, only like the top 1% can afford it. I feel that these people essentially, those working in the space industry right now, developing sort of like new technology, new machinery, I feel that it doesn't actually have to be like part of space tourism. Like from what Chris said, you can actually sort of indirectly develop other areas, sort of like sort of developing an even faster method of traveling rather than aviation or sort of like air travel. So yeah, I think I have to take a step back, taking it slower to directly asserting my claim that okay, space travel is already inherently bad. So yeah, I guess that's my final thoughts on that.
Yeah, maybe also with the the reusable rockets thing, right? That was they were trying to use that to lower the cost so that more people can use the rockets, and just to make it more affordable for everyone. And yeah, that's important for space tourism, where it's going, like, where people use it a lot. But I guess that it also can benefit space travel as a whole, not just for tourism. If you could use reusable rockets, I think it would benefit everyone who needs to use the rocket, whether it's for science or just astronauts going to space. I think the development of these reusable rockets could also be helpful towards space as well. So yeah, I guess you make a point.
Right. Building on what's reusable and kind of like sustainable, what do you guys think about like the environment, or the environmental impacts of space tourism?
I think a con for the environmental impacts is like the CO2 output from regular vehicles in space tourism. I think that it should be addressed with proper policies.
Yeah,
But at this, wait, sorry, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So honestly, I feel like, with a lot of governments globally, a lot of companies all around the world right now are already burdened with the struggle of essentially like decreasing their carbon footprint, decreasing their CO2 output. So I believe, like, if space tourism develops even further, if there's opportunities for example, developing a new type of fuel that these sort of like space rockets can take the space tourists up to space, I feel that, yeah, it really opens opportunities for environmental development of certain technologies. But at the same time, if you want to sort of develop something that you already have, you're likely gonna burn more fossil fuels, use up more energy, therefore generating more an increased carbon footprint. So I believe, like, if there's something at the very end going to occur, something good for the environment, I believe we can sort of like take a few resources, take a small portion of time to sort of sacrifice our I would say resources currently in order to develop a brighter future. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, but this is for tourism, right? I think if we're talking about space tourism in general, I don't think, yeah, it's bad that they're burning rocket fuel and all that, but how often realistically are people just gonna go up and down to space? Like right now, like, they barely, it's not something that I would say is a huge concern, that because suddenly there's a new rocket every day, we're just burning so much rocket fuel. I don't think that's really an issue right now. And I guess there's an issue on the fact that it's tourism instead of educational or scientific space travel. I think, like, if you were talking about if they were burning so much rocket fuel that it's dangerous, but at the same time they're learning more about space, that's one thing. But then, if they're burning so much rocket fuel and it's tourism, I guess that can be a problem. But yeah, my main point is that I don't think that that there's enough space tourism as of right now that it poses that much of a threat, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, over time, this industry will develop just like the first space race wave developed. You have the International Space Station now, and like hundreds and tons of debris floating around in the atmosphere. Like back then, launches happened probably like once every 10 years, but now we're launching satellites like probably every day or something. So I think we do need environmental policies which will regulate the future of space tourism.
Yeah, I guess if you want to sort of develop the current the current space tourism industry, you're actually going to have to there's going to be more policies sort of implemented in sort of these stuff, because previously, it was usually NASA being the most dominant sort of stakeholder service actor in the entire space tourism industry. So I feel that with these growing companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, you're going to have to implement more policies. And so I think I've read on one online article that the Federal Aviation Administration has been generally taking up the responsibility of overseeing these larger companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin. However, right now the regulation is still relatively, like, how do you say, like, meager. And so I guess one area of concern right now is whether these policies will be able to properly regulate the the development of the space tourism industry. So I feel that if you want to develop something, you're going to have to put even more policies, more restrictions in order to sort of like have fair competition, to have environmental sustainability and stuff like that. So yeah, I believe you actually need to go through a long process of implementing new policies and new laws and new restrictions.
All right, going ahead of what Kimi said about the environment and stuff like that, I think we can also make social connections here, and based on like a common view that this isn't socially beneficial. Space tourism might actually, with private investment, of course, might actually spearhead the next space race. And that space race is the next step. The next step of space race is obviously space colonization. There's a lot of talk around space mining and bringing back resources from space to actually help Earth. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, again, I think there needs to be a difference between, you know, space exploration of like sending people that know what they're doing, that like they're like geologists or astronomers going to space, rather than like there needs to be a difference between that
Right.
and sending rich people to space so they can see the atmosphere and then come
Exactly,
down, you know.
but these rich people are developing the technology and the background and the backbone of how we will get these professionals and these researchers and these people who know what they're doing, not just billionaires, you know, billionaires trying to have fun and stuff, into space. So I do think that space tourism is like the middle step before we can get to sending the professionals and building a colony and mining space resources and stuff.
Wait, so just to get this straight, in simple terms here, are you saying that you need these rich and wealthy people in order to fund these projects, or are you saying more like we need people to directly support these space projects in order for everyone to enjoy benefits in the future?
Well, I'm talking about resource benefits.
Or the research benefits.
It's just that, you know, you can have government programs with NASA, obviously, but with private investment, it's obviously going to be much more advanced. The technology, I mean. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, if, for example, like me, a private investor, I'm going to invest. For example, I'm the owner of Coca-Cola, right? And I want to, and Coca-Cola as a company wants to collectively invest in, I don't know, SpaceX, for example, to support their latest, I don't know, for example, like space tourism project. Like, wouldn't I, as a company, want more than actually what they're giving us in the future, which is the benefits of space tourism? So I think I've read on one of the articles, it's said that this beer company, they actually put, I think, 66 gallons of beer onto the Inspiration 4 space mission past the Kármán line, which was the SpaceX mission to the one which lasted about a week, I think. So basically, after they went to space and back down, this beer company actually sort of like took advantage of this and actually started to advertise their space beer, something like that. Basically saying that their beer that went to space, they're putting it on sort of like an auction, like whoever's the highest bidder is going to have a beer that went to space. So I feel that companies right now are sort of taking this opportunity to capitalize the most and actually take advantage of the most of whatever's like put in front of them. So yeah, I feel that that's either something really dangerous or something we can look into more, and something else like the space industry can be aware of. Yeah.
Personally, I think it's a good thing. With more money flowing into the space industry, you can develop more technologies and you can go to space faster. You can send more professionals into space faster, and you can open the industry, the space tourism industry, into a broader audience. Because, you know, over time, these companies will seek, like you said, capitalization. They will seek a larger profit, and they'll eventually have to turn into a wider audience, you know, because you can't just cater to billionaires forever. They're gonna get bored or something. So.
Well, okay. Number one, I think you can cater to rich people. Like, you can just do it completely fine. There's like, you know, sports cars or any other luxury brand. They cater to rich people and they're doing just fine. I think if anything now, because right now the very, very top people, they can make it a little bit more affordable, that even though it's still not affordable to it's not affordable to the regular people. I think it's it'll have enough impact to stay afloat. I just think that it's like really interesting, like how Kimi said when he was talking about the beer company that sent their beer to space. There's actually like a huge market, I guess, or a huge opportunity for brands that probably have nothing to do with space to get their brand out there for marketing and branding, compared to like an educational or scientific launch, space launch. There's not going to be, you won't see like a beer company, right, sponsoring like a science launch. But when it's tourism and you can see like where it's for fun, I think there's like a huge opportunity for these brands to sponsor and get their name, and it's going to become a whole market, I think.
Yeah, I guess like expanding on more on what Darren said, I guess we should really talk about more on the like social equality aspect, or more leading more into like the social aspect. So I guess like one question I'm really interested in is like, why do the rich actually want to go to space? Like, what is their initial or their main incentive to actually go to space? Like, I want to know your guys' thoughts on this.
I feel like it's just definitely a space race thing. No, it's between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. I think they just want to prove like which company's better.
Yeah, like I feel
Wait,
like
were you talking about like the CEOs why they want to do this, or are you talking about like the customers why they want to go to space?
oh I mean you can say it both ways, like either those CEOs or those people who actually want to go to space tourism. So I guess we can divide that into two. So yeah, I guess we can speak on the CEOs first.
Okay. Yeah, I think like what John said, it is like there's a competition, and it's just this is like a completely brand new market. No one's done it before, so there is some sort of competition where they want to outdo the others. But I think these CEOs see the huge possibilities, like economically, of what space tourism can bring, and they want to be there first, I think.
Right. I agree, because with the CEOs, obviously there's most likely an ego thing going on, between billionaires and keeping status. But the interesting thing is it's a new industry, and people will want to jump in on it as quick as they can to turn a profit. So Bezos actually sued SpaceX, because SpaceX did a deal with NASA for some technological improvement, and Bezos wouldn't be happy with that. So what do you guys think about that?
I heard like so NASA had to pause their deal with SpaceX for 2.5 months, waiting for the lawsuit to end. So yeah, to what Chris said, I heard that NASA is getting sued. NASA and SpaceX is both getting sued from Blue Origin, as SpaceX won their contract for the human lander system, which is to carry the astronauts to the surface of the moon as of 2024.
Wait, yeah. So you mentioned a lawsuit, right? So why are they getting sued again?
Right, so Blue Origin is actually suing SpaceX because SpaceX signed that deal that SpaceX made with NASA. Blue Origin claimed that they were monopolizing the space tourism industry, and just the space industry, and that it's not creating a healthy environment for competition. That goes against the law.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as of now, like, do you guys support Elon Musk, or do you support Jeff Bezos? Jeff Bezos' blue action of actually suing Elon Musk SpaceX.
I don't think it's ethical of just Jeff Bezos to sue for what another company's doing. Like, SpaceX is just doing whatever they want. But coming from like the standard person perspective, I think it's just good if the two companies fight over each other for who's gonna get to space first, because that in itself is already competition.
Yeah, in a recent interview, like Elon Musk, the CEO and the chief engineer of SpaceX, said like, you cannot sue your way onto the moon, no matter how good your lawyers are. He also said that he should, I think he, as in Jeff Bezos, should put more of his energy into getting to orbit than lawsuits.
Right. That's why I also think it's unethical because Jeff Bezos can do whatever he wants and SpaceX can do whatever they want. Why does Jeff Bezos need to intrude on what another company's doing?
I
So
think
yeah,
there's a
there's
little
that
bit of
side.
like saltiness in there too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Jeff Bezos is acting a little bit petty, with such a big company like Amazon already. I'm pretty sure he has enough capital to actually put like foreign investments in Blue Origin. So I think they can very well develop as fast as SpaceX, but honestly, I feel they won't develop to this current point SpaceX is, because SpaceX being a company that's already established for a long time, Blue Origin has to like build their very foundations from the start in order to reach SpaceX. So I guess I can see where Jeff Bezos' actions, decision of suing SpaceX, where it's coming from. So yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Jeff Bezos is petty per se, but I would say because they have billions of dollars running down the line on the line for this new industry. But yeah, I agree with what you said.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring up like how he's already a CEO. He was the founder of Amazon, right? And yeah, and he's still one of the richest people in the world, right? So I'm I'm pretty sure that they're not suing each other because they're worried that they're not going to make a profit, right? I feel like there is something egoistic about it. They want to be the first, and and they are competing against each other. But for these CEO individuals like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, I don't I don't think that money is necessarily an issue for them, or that's why that they're suing. I don't think it's money. I think it's more egoistic.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess right now, what question we can ask is more on like the employees who are actually working for the company like Amazon. With, as I previously mentioned before, Jeff Bezos actually made a statement that it is my employees from Amazon who are actually paying for the space mission. So I guess there's a really large gap of social inequality right now within like those who can afford space tourism and those who cannot afford space tourism. So what are your guys' thoughts on sort of like the social inequality space tourism is creating?
In answering your question, I think that space tourism is like perceived as a manipulative commodity for businesses and the wealthy. Like the rich spend their money to have fun in space, and while a pandemic ensues on the ground, and the rich clearly only have one incentive of going to space. Even among the rich, only the richest of the rich are privileged to take a trip to space.
Yeah, so I think that everyone kind of has their own take on the situation, because um unlike last time when we talked about the Olympics, right? That was sort of a global event that we all get to see, right? But now when it comes to space tourism, I think it's going to be exclusive, and it's going to be more of a thing of whether you can experience it or not. I think like it is going to be for the rich people, unfortunately, and not everyone's going to be able to um I don't think everyone's going to be able to do it ever, no matter how advanced or affordable it gets. So this is definitely something economical, and so because everyone has their own status, I think everyone will have a different opinion on how it is here.
Right, I do agree. No matter how affordable it gets, capitalism always lets some people in and leaves some people out. There's always inequality somewhere, anywhere. So yeah, that's definitely a thing to consider for the future of space tourism.
Yeah, I think all we can really do is just sit here and see what happens as it unfolds, and yeah, we just need to see what, and at least I think we can be hopeful in seeing what space tourism holds for us in the future.
That was a very interesting conversation about space exploration and tourism. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening to us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.